Am I the a-hole for refusing to pressure my grandfather to give my stepsister the family diamond? Context. I am 25 female. My parents have been divorced for 15 years. My dad has been married to his wife, Laura, for 10 years. Laura has 2 daughters, Katie 26 female and Sam 22 female. My dad is very close to Katie and Sam and considers them to be daughters to him. The grandfather I'm referring to is my dad's father. My grandfather has a diamond that belonged to my great-grandmother, and it's something of a family miracle, since my grandfather managed to find it after World War II. Unfortunately, he lost his mother and sister in the war, so he saved the diamond to be for the next woman in the family, to be set into an engagement ring. Now, my grandfather has a thing about blood and family. Namely, if you're not blood, you can be family, but you're not in the family. And I'm pretty sure this is somewhat related to his trauma, but it might be a generational thing. Because of this distinction, his sons were not allowed to use the diamond for their wives' rings, because then the diamond would belong to the wife and the wife is not blood. I'm his only biological granddaughter, so it was always presumed that the diamond would go to me. I got engaged last year and I didn't end up using the diamond for the ring. The diamond was not a color or the cut of the style I wanted, and my grandfather knew that. He offered to have the diamond recut, but I begged him not to because it is very valuable, and I know how much it means to him. So, he agreed that when I get married, he will set it into a necklace to be worn on my wedding day instead. Now, Katie is going to get engaged soon, and my dad is likely to be asked to walk her down the aisle. Laura asked my grandfather to give her the diamond for Katie's ring, since she is basically my father's daughter. My grandfather said, and I quote, "Not even over my dead body," and that the diamond will stay in the family. That said, Laura, my dad, and Katie are now extremely upset. My dad suggested maybe I could ask my grandfather to let them use the diamond, since I hadn't used it for a ring anyway and that he considers Katie part of his family and will be forever. So it should be okay for her to have it, especially since she is older, so the first woman as it were. My grandfather would probably relent if I asked him, but I said no, because I would feel too guilty. That diamond is all my grandfather has left of a family he lost in the most horrific circumstances when he was 9 years old. They don't even have graves. That stone is literally all he has to remember them. What right do any of us have to dictate what he does with it? Katie, Laura, and my dad have all been texting and calling about how hurt they are, that I'm letting my grandfather exclude Katie from the family, and that I already have a ring. Why can't I just help my grandfather soften and let Laura and her kids be part of the family? I'm holding firm on it for now, but should I be? Now for the top comments. The diamond is all my grandfather has left of a family he lost in the most horrific circumstances when he was 9 years old. They don't even have graves. That stone is literally all he has to remember them. What right do any of us have to dictate what he does with it? Not the a-hole. I love you for this. For this statement alone, the diamond should go to you. Allow him to set it in a necklace and wear it all the time. It will make your grandpa happy. Not the a-hole. Reading between the lines, it seems your grandfather lost his family specifically because of their blood/genealogy. It makes sense that his own survivors matter so much to him. Not the a-hole. As much as they may be upset, it's not theirs. Your grandfather wants it to go to someone genetically related to him, not to someone brought into the family by marriage. His reasoning is exactly the same reason he didn't give it to the women marrying into the family. Grandpa has a right to say no. Your dad and stepsisters will just have to get over it. The hard truth is that they are not his grandchildren. They are step-grandkids, and family heirlooms don't typically pass down to stepchildren, especially with an older generation. And they became his step-kids as teens. It's not like he's been in their lives since they were babies. They likely didn't grow up viewing him as their grandfather at all, and while he may like them, they aren't his grandkids by blood or by social convention given their ages. Even if the kids had been adopted at birth, it wouldn't matter. They still wouldn't be blood relatives. Opie's the only one entitled to that diamond, as she's the only one genetically related to the grandfather. Opie's not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not bringing a cake to a wedding I was uninvited from? My now ex-best friend got married this Saturday. I was supposed to be the maid of honor, but she removed me from the wedding over a dispute regarding my makeup, hair, and disinterest in the wedding. She uninvited me from the wedding after I told friends my side of the story. I was responsible for the cake at the wedding but canceled the order because I was uninvited and wanted to be reimbursed for all of my investments in this wedding. I told the bride I wasn't going to bring the cake over for them, The new maid of honor went to pick up the cake and learned that I had canceled the order. They were able to get another cake, but it apparently wasn't as nice. The bride, groom, and my sister who attended told me it was unfair to cancel the cake. My sister thinks I should have let them enjoy their special day, and then later discussed getting my money back. The bride refers to the cake as a gift and claims that a gift cannot be returned. The groom just agrees with literally anything his precious wife says. More info, please. What was the dispute? Why did she accuse you of being disinterested in the wedding? What actually happened here? I work at a job where I'm expected to drop everything and come in at work. She was upset because I was leaving during wedding planning meetings, and I also requested to style my hair differently and she got upset. You don't disinvite someone from a wedding and still expect a gift. Not the a-hole. I guess you could say the bride wanted to have her cake and eat it too. Yep, and there is no way that the bride would have settled up after the wedding. She would have stuck to the "this was your gift" line. Not the a-hole. So they uninvite you from the wedding but believe they were still entitled to the cake you had paid for? They're all ridiculous if they think that is normal. Completely agree. Also messed up that your sister is saying you're unfair. Should be upset too if she were uninvited and still expected to gift a cake. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. First, I've never heard of a maid of honor being responsible for the wedding cake. Was that an agreement in lieu of a gift or something? When I was getting married, I was way excited about the excuse for cake. I don't think I would have let someone else make those arrangements. You said you told them you weren't bringing the cake over. Did you mention that was because the order was canceled, or just that you weren't transporting the cake? It's weird that she didn't clarify on this point when she uninvited you. Sounds like they want to have their cake and eat it too, without you around. She was stressed, so I offered to help with some things. I booked the cake under my name and still had a different gift for them. After getting uninvited, I told her, don't expect me to supply you with a cake. So I did not exactly say I canceled your cake. Next story. Am I the a-hole for inserting myself into a married couple's financial life? I'm friends with a married couple, Grace and Michael. Grace and I went out to drink a few days ago, just the two of us. We talked a bit about inflation and finances, and she confessed to me that she barely has any money, and it makes her feel really vulnerable. Turns out, they mostly live off of her income, and Michael, who makes over 2.5 times as much as Grace, puts almost all of his income into savings. He also asks Grace to transfer any of her bonuses or extra money into that savings account. The problem is that Grace has no access to that account. She told me she asked for it in the past, but Michael just said she already has access to their shared checking account. That is strictly for their monthly expenses, so it's fine. Grace told me that she feels like she should have access to that account too, or at least have a little extra in her own personal account. So if anything happens to Michael, she doesn't have to wait months to access the money. She told this to Michael too, but he dismissed her and said nothing will happen to him. I told Grace that this is really not okay, and she should demand access to that account. It's her money too, and it's not right that only Michael has access to it. I was very strong about this, and made her promise that she will make Michael give access to her. She seemed very relieved that I agree with her, and find her concerns more than reasonable. Now on to the problem. Currently, Michael is throwing a fit at me for inserting myself into their financial life, saying it's none of my business. He says that over 85% of the money was put into the savings account by him, and whatever Grace put there was just to compensate for the things Michael paid for alone in the past. Yes, he is right that is none of my business, but my close friend came to me saying she feels vulnerable because at 30 years old, she only has about 500 euros in her name, despite having a well-paying job. Of course, I will tell her this isn't right and encourage her to stand up for herself. But since I'm friends with Michael too, I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are warning a friend that it sounds like she's a victim of financial abuse. He's demanding all her pay be shared while sharing none of his. He's trying to make sure she has no funds to which she can use to separate their lives, that he can claim all the money as his. She needed a huge wake-up call, and he's just mad you've shown her his true colors. I agree. Finally, we did the opposite. As my wife has little income, I made sure to put my life insurance in her name, and our joint savings account is in her name too. I want her to feel secure and have as much financial autonomy as possible given the circumstances. We save together, support each other. All the income is ours in my opinion. I feel like for a married couple, all income should be our money too. If that doesn't work for every couple, that is perfectly fine. Just keep totally separate accounts. I feel like it's one or the other. OP's friend's husband is trying to have it both ways. He just wants all the money. There is no reason for her to have a well-paying job and feel like she's broke all the time. OP, you were just validating what your friend already knows. Not the a-hole, but the husband sure is. Not the a-hole, and your friend is being financially mistreated by Michael, who is a total a-hole. Grace needs her own savings account to put her extra money into. This is not a marriage. Why does Michael think he deserves exclusive access to the extra money? If this is the way it's going to be, they should just keep separate finances for everything. It's an all-or-none situation. This sounds like one of those situations where the wife finds out her husband has a secret family or something. Or is deeply in debt, or gambling it all away, or has a secret drug habits or something. So many other awful and expensive things. She doesn't have access to the account because he is lying to her about what the account is for, and likely how much money is in it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for doing a background check on my boyfriend? My boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 months. Even though it's early days, I really thought he was the one. He is nice, attentive, funny, and attractive, and I'm getting older, and I thought he must be the one I have kids with and settle down with. But he doesn't drive, which is very strange in my city. The public transportation is really bad, and most people would opt for a car over an apartment because at least they would be able to get around. Only people who work from home or were in poverty wouldn't have a car, and he makes good money and works 15 minutes away from where he lives by car, so it made no sense. He shows up at dates by asking his friends for rides or asking me to pick him up. We live close by, so I didn't mind, but I asked him about it and he said cars are expensive and he didn't want to pay for one. But then he has trouble getting around and complains about how expensive Ubers are. One day, I found out that my state has a website of public crimes and decided to put in his name. A wall of offenses came up, and it matched his first, middle, and last names as well as his year of birth. He has 5 DUIs and has a court date for a pending one in a week. The DUIs range in date from 10 years ago to one he got 6 months ago. That's the one he is set to go to court for. Because his name isn't super uncommon, I decided to see if he takes the day off work because it's in the morning. He does take that day off and says he has a doctor's appointment. I confronted him when I came over that evening and he got angry at me for not trusting him and infiltrating his personal life like this. I'm angry he lied to me, and he says he doesn't have to tell me everything and that he's changed. I told him his last DUI was 6 months ago, so how has he changed? He got mad and said the cops were pinning things on him, and he just had alcohol with him and he didn't actually drink. I could believe that for 1 DUI, but he has 5. So I asked him to show me proof and he said he doesn't have to, and if I was a good girlfriend, I would just trust him. I don't because he lied to me already, but am I the a-hole for doing a background check on him why he didn't drive? Not the a-hole. Committing crimes that put other people's lives at risk isn't your personal life. Just dump him now. Dude can't even take responsibility for something he's been arrested for 5 times. Plus, if you've been arrested 5 times, guaranteed he's driven drunk multiple times where he didn't get caught. As someone who works in the justice system, I can say this is totally true. I see this all the time. I once had someone driving under influence to court. Although I live in another country, the people who do this are the same. Not the a-hole. Multiple DUIs can indicate a lot of things. And besides that, I honestly think more people should do a background check on their significant others. It could have been a lot worse than a DUI with no casualties. He wasn't honest about it and got angry when you found out. Might want to reevaluate if this is the guy for you. Might want to reevaluate. Red flags OP. These are your red flags telling you to run. At the point of 5 DUIs, it suggests to me a drinking problem. If it's changed, then does he drink? Is he an AA? I can understand not wanting to lead with that with someone before things get serious, but a conversation about a drinking problem you used to have is a lot easier than talking about a drinking problem you still have. Not the a-hole. She just looked up public records because she was curious about him dodging a question. Even if he had just said it was because of some personal issues he is addressing and wasn't ready to talk about it quite yet, OP probably wouldn't have pride. He dodged the question, and it's reasonable to look at public records to figure out why. Not the a-hole. You didn't run a background check. You checked public records. Run the heck away. Text him you're dumping him right now. He's an alcoholic liar with continual criminal thinking. Exactly. Him basically saying to you that you're not allowed to question him about what he does with his life. It's him saying that your relationship would be that you're not allowed to ask him questions if he had already decided to lie to you about what he was doing. He is someone who continuously drove drunk and has only stopped right now seemingly because he would go to prison. As soon as prison is off the table, he will likely be out driving drunk again. Update. Am I the a-hole for going behind my wife's back and telling her pregnant sister that she's being cheated on? Original post. I have been married to my wife for 3 years. I'm 27 and she is 26. My sister-in-law is 30 and my brother-in-law is 31. I've always had a close relationship with my sister-in-law. We're friends. I also have a decent connection with my brother-in-law, though we're not that close. We often talk and get along. My wife and her sister haven't gotten along as well as you might expect siblings do. It's not just normal sibling rivalry, but rather constant fights and arguments. Anyway, 3 weeks ago, when I was having dinner with my friends, I saw my brother-in-law with another woman. They were just eating, and I didn't think much of it. I wanted to go and greet him, but I stayed with my friends. After a while, I saw him give this woman a light kiss. I was so shocked. I decided not to confront him, but when I got home, I told my wife everything. I told her that her sister was being cheated on and that we needed to tell her. My wife said we should talk to my brother-in-law instead of telling her sister and that we shouldn't break up their marriage because her sister is pregnant. I was like, what? So what if she's pregnant? Her husband is cheating. I tried multiple times to convince my wife that we should tell her sister the truth. I told her, I know you guys don't get along, but she's still your sister, and this isn't right. But my wife asked me to stay out of it. I tried my best to convince her, but she either ignored me or insisted that we should break up their marriage. I had enough, and yesterday I told her that I was going to tell my sister-in-law the truth. She and I have a great bond, and I can't and won't betray her. My wife then said that if I told her, she wouldn't talk to me anymore. I replied, I won't talk to you either if you refuse to do what's right. Today, I went to my sister-in-law's place and told her everything. At first, she was doubtful and asked me to leave. After a few hours, she called me crying and said that what I told her was true. She apologized for doubting me and told me she was leaving. I asked her, where will you go? Do you have money? She said she did, but not much. I wired her some money and told her to call me if she needed help. She thanked me and said she would only use the money if necessary and would return what she didn't need. My brother-in-law called my wife and my wife lashed out at me, saying I ruined her family and her sister's life. I said, I thought that when we got married, your family became mine and my family became yours. Why are you defending that man so much? What about your sister? She didn't respond and hasn't talked to me since. I tried to explain to her that it was the right thing to do, but she wouldn't listen. Finally, I said, fine, stay angry, and if you want to divorce me, go ahead. Now, I feel like I may have ruined my marriage and don't know if what I did was truly the right thing. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. If I were you, I would sleep with one eye open. Your wife has no moral standards. I truly have been thinking about this, that she might just be... But I love and trust my wife, and I was thinking she wanted me to not tell her because my sister-in-law is pregnant, and women knows how stressful pregnancy and after pregnancy is. And she might have thought that she needs support from her husband? I don't know. Nothing here makes sense to me. There was nothing for me to suspect of her cheating on me. You know what else would cause your pregnant sister-in-law stress? Getting an STD from her cheating husband. You've done the right thing. Sounds like your wife supports cheater and that should be worrying to you. Not the a-hole. I've thought about it, and I am concerned. But I think she asked me not to tell her because my sister-in-law is pregnant, and it would cause her more stress. That's just my guess. But the truth is, if I hide it and support my wife, I'm in the wrong. If I tell her the truth after she gives birth, I'm still wrong. If I hide it forever, I'm still wrong. So what am I supposed to do? Cover for the betrayer and not help my family? even if my wife is angry at me, and I'll probably lose her if I haven't lost her already. I'm surprised your wife wouldn't tell her sister. So am I. What I think is that no matter how strained both sisters' relationship is, at least a sibling would have the back of their sibling, especially when they are pregnant. But she didn't even try to help her sister, and angry at me. I am like, WTF? Is this really the woman I got married to? Now for the update. It's been a few days since I told my wife's sister that her husband is cheating. Just to clarify for all the people questioning me, no, I am not in love with my sister-in-law. I don't have any inappropriate relationship or feelings for her. I respect her and she's family. Yesterday, I asked my wife why she was upset and why she didn't want me to reveal the truth to her sister. I know they don't get along, but they're still siblings. My wife said it wasn't our place to interfere. I asked if she was okay with her sister being cheated on. She said she wasn't, but that I'd ruin their marriage with my stupidity. She said her sister is pregnant and the child needs his father, and so does the wife. I was so shocked when she said that. Like, what? I asked her, if I were to cheat on you, would you forgive me? She said yes. I also asked if, hypothetically, she ever cheated on me, would she hide it from me? She also said yes. I was stunned and asked her if she understood what she was saying. She said, yes, and I am confident. Just because you slept with someone else doesn't mean everyone else has to suffer and break the family. I was speechless, and then told her I had also sent my sister-in-law money. She started yelling at me, saying I shouldn't have helped her, knowing that she doesn't like her sister. I replied that if that's how she felt, maybe we should just divorce. She got angry, shouted, fine, and began packing her bags. I tried my best to stop her, telling her that I love her and that I was only doing what I thought was right. No one should have to suffer betrayal like this. She argued that it wasn't the right time. I asked, so when should we tell her the truth? After she gives birth? Because that would worsen her postpartum depression. Or years after? She'll just blame us. My wife said we should have kept quiet and left it alone. I tried so hard to stop her, but she wouldn't listen and left. I've tried to contact her parents and friends, but none of them know where she is. They instead started questioning me, saying that as her husband, I should have taken care of her and should know where she is. I even visited my brother-in-law's place to confirm my suspicions, but I didn't see her car or any of her belongings there. I hate that I'm being blamed for simply telling the truth, and my wife left me without a second thought. I was so frustrated that today I called my sister-in-law and told her she could stay at my place because I'm going to my parents, and my wife left me with no one knowing where she is. She said she'd try talking to her parents, but later called back to say they didn't know where she was either. I told her to focus on herself and come stay at my place instead of spending all her money on temporary accommodations. So now, I'm at my parents' house and my sister-in-law is at my home. Maybe I'm being petty, but I can't stand that my wife left me without a second thought. I don't know if she's cheating or has cheated, or if she would ever truly betray me and her own sister because of family feuds. But one thing is for sure, I can't trust my wife anymore. She hurt me deeply. I'm sorry, Opie. The way your wife speaks on the subject of cheating is concerning. Especially that she would hide it from you. If I were in your shoes, I won't be able to trust her either. How she doesn't look at cheating on your significant other as a huge deal breaker is beyond me. Some couples can forgive and move past it, but not all. The baby's father can still be in his/her life. I'm sorry you're hurting and going through this. Hugs. Yeah, I feel like she isn't even the woman I married. She's like a completely different person. Maybe the comments about I married a wrong sister were right. Haha. In any case, I loved her and I still do and will do so for a foreseeable future. So I'll just back out of relationship and dating scene. And even I don't trust my wife at this point. Your wife was mad because she's most likely the one having the affair with your brother-in-law. And if it's not with a brother-in-law, it's definitely with someone else where you think she's been, hiding at her affair partner's place. Your wife told you she would cheat on you and would have no remorse to it, and would also not tell you. What in that tells you she hasn't already done that? She sympathizes with cheating probably because she's been in that position and sees it in herself as no big deal. You obviously feel differently. Think on this for a while before you go groveling and begging for her back. I think she just told you a really big secret, and expects you to understand and forgive her. At this point, I would just contact her parents and say you need an address for her to be served. This is not a marriage where your partner storms off and disappears with no contact. Next story. Am I the a-hole for considering divorcing my wife because she told my sister's husband that my sister cheated on him? My wife and I have been married for 14 years and we have 3 kids. My wife has always been a bit snoopy and nosy, but it didn't really bother me until recently. My sister and I have always been close since childhood, and we tell each other everything. Many years ago, my sister confessed to me that she had an emotional affair, which lasted for a month. She was in tears and very remorseful. Her marriage was going through a difficult time. We talked a lot about it, and after those conversations, my sister joined therapy, became sober, and she's now living a very happy life with her husband. My wife never knew about this because I've always made sure to keep my conversations private. However, a couple of weeks ago, I was a bit drunk and got lazy about being careful while talking to my sister. My sister was talking about how that was a turning point in her life and how she could be happier now. My wife overheard this conversation and asked me about it the next day. I told her it was none of her business, but she kept saying it was unfair to my sister's husband and that he deserved to know. I told my wife to let it go, but instead, she called my sister's husband directly and told him what she'd overheard. I was shocked and really angry at her. Now my sister's marriage is on the rocks, and her husband is seriously considering divorce. I told my wife that if my sister goes through a divorce, then I would go through a divorce too. She was shocked and apologized repeatedly, saying she would never do this again, but I don't think this is repairable. She's now begging me to at least consider our kids and how disruptive a divorce would be. The atmosphere at our house is really tense now, and I'm no longer sleeping in the same room as my wife. I refuse to talk to her or eat the breakfast or dinner she prepares. Instead, I go out to eat. My wife has cried a few times, but I think those are empty tears. Am I the a-hole for considering divorce? Now for the comments. It's weird that you're the one threatening divorcing her, since she would be the one divorcing you because you're a huge a-hole. I'm going to be an emotional terrorist to my children by removing myself from breakfast and dinner and leaving them confused and scared because they can tell I'm fighting with their mom. Dude can't even keep appearances for the sake of the kids. You don't even have to speak with her. Just show up and eat the freaking food for their sake until you either decide to patch things up or file for divorce. This part, dude doesn't even care about his kid's emotional state. Just him, his sister, and his own invalid feelings. What kind of husband supports a cheater? Covers it up? What kind of dad treats his kids' mothers like that in front of them? All of this over a month-long emotional affair years ago? It wasn't years ago that he cheated on husband. He just found out, so it's fresh. Things get really gray when you're talking about a short emotional affair. What does it even mean in this context? She realized she was developing feelings for a coworker and texting him too much, so she cut contact with him and went on to have a far happier marriage? Going back on some of that stuff is thought crime level nonsense. I'm okay with labeling something an emotional affair when they're sending "I love you and can't wait to leave my husband for you" texts, and he finds out about it. But it's kinda different when she realizes she's doing the wrong thing, then shuts it down on her own before anything physical happens. Like, what's next? Leave her for having a dream about someone else? We all have thoughts and feelings, and sometimes they wander. The thing that should matter is what you choose to do with those feelings. She chose to discard them and stay with her husband. That seems like something I would have told against her. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she's ruining my wedding by demanding I invite her ex? So my wedding is coming up in a few weeks, and it's supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. I, 28 female, have been planning it for months with my fiancé, 30 male. Everything is coming together except for my sister, 26 female. A bit of backstory. My sister and her ex, Jake, were together for several years. They broke up about 6 months ago, and it was a pretty messy breakup. She was devastated, and I've been there for her through all of it. I understand that she's still struggling, and I've tried my best to be supportive. The problem started when she told me she wanted me to invite Jake to my wedding. I was taken aback because, well, things ended badly between them, and she's clearly not over it. I told her from the start that I wasn't comfortable inviting him, especially since it was such a painful breakup for her. She seemed okay with that at first, but then she started pushing me harder. She said it wasn't fair for her to pretend everything is fine and that I was being insensitive to her feelings. I tried explaining that this is my wedding and I want it to be a day focused on joy, not uncomfortable situations. But now she's really upset. Then it escalated. She told me that if Jake wasn't invited, she wouldn't come to the wedding at all. She says it's too important for her to have him there for closure. I get that she's going through something tough, but this is my wedding, and I don't want it overshadowed by old drama. I've tried to be firm and said she could either come and respect my decision or not come at all. But now she's telling the rest of the family that I'm being selfish and prioritizing a wedding day over her emotional well-being. It's tearing me up, but I really feel like I'm standing my ground. I'm now questioning if I'm being too harsh. I know weddings are a big deal, but it feels like she's making this all about her, and it's not the time or place to do that. So, am I the a-hole? Say, okay, you're off the guest list, and then hang up. The wedding is not the venue for her drama. Whatever you do, don't keep reasoning with her and negotiating with her. She's out. Invite your nice colleague or neighbor instead. She needs to stop being this pathetically desperate for a guy who doesn't want her. It would be weird for Jake to even want to come. But let's say he did and does go. Sister is probably imagining a reconciliation happening because it is a wedding and love is in the air, and she has watched one too many Hallmark movies. But what is going to happen in reality is, he will either come with someone which will set her off. He will start hitting on the bridesmaids, which will set her off, or he will spend the night actively trying to avoid her while she chases him around like a lovesick puppy, which will then set her off. No matter what, she will end up ruining the wedding. Not coming is always a choice, but not coming because an ex won't be there is delusional and sad. I hope you have a beautiful, drama-free wedding and a resounding not the a-hole. I think she's hoping Jake will reach out to her to figure out going together as each other's +1 if he gets the invite, possibly triggering a reconciliation. That level of delusion needs serious help though. Not the a-hole. If she wants closure, she calls him like an adult and have a last dinner with him. Your wedding is not a place for her private dramas. Your in-laws don't have to be witnesses of this. She is disrespectful towards you, but she is more towards your fiancé, like it's not his big day too. It's not about your family, it's about two families joining. Your sister makes it about her. So, it's absolutely her right to not come to the wedding, but it will be her fault, not yours. She doesn't want closure. She's hoping the romantic setting of a wedding will be the perfect place to rekindle their relationship. Update. Grown man ruining my son's life. Please help me ruin his. Original post. I'm living in hell right now and need ideas. My son just turned 18 and is disabled. He needs and takes multiple medications and requires support at school. He does well in some settings and is on track to graduate and pursue trade school with support, and we're so proud of him. He is extremely impressionable, a little socially awkward, and desperate for friends. For years we've struggled because he gives away his possessions, gets into bad situations, like someone offering to sell him rocks at a park, him thinking they're collectible gemstones, only to freak out when he realizes they're drugs, and is easily bullied. He will do anything to be liked, which breaks my heart. We're working on this in therapy and with trusted adults, but it's a slow process. Now onto the grown man. This guy is 28 years old. Let's call him Quentin. He's frequently homeless, often sleeping in a tent in parks. Occasionally, he gets a voucher from our city to stay in a motel. He has 2 pit bulls, neither spayed or neutered, which he leaves in a tent or motel room when he works his fast food job. I have compassion for his situation, but not when it involves my son. It started with Quentin asking my son to watch his dogs in the park while he worked. My son, thrilled to have a friend and eager to help, agreed. He loves animals, so he'd spend 8+ hours a day or night alone in a park watching these dogs. He began asking if he could take dog food, toys, and blankets from our house for Quentin's dogs. At first we said yes because I appreciated that he wanted to help the dogs. But when we said no, he started taking things anyway. Things escalated a few months ago when Quentin told my son that now that he is 18, he didn't have to stay with us and could stay with him instead. For weeks, my son was sleeping in a tent with Quentin and the dogs or roughing it in the park. Quentin gave him beer and weed. My son would watch the dogs for entire shifts while Quentin worked. Quentin even told him he'd help him get a tent and vouchers too. The police are sympathetic, especially because of my son's disabilities and medical issues, but he's 18. The school is supportive, but with graduation approaching, there's only so much they can do. And again, he's legally an adult. We never pursued medical conservatorship because things were going relatively well before now, and we don't take removing civil liberties lightly. In the past week, Quentin got another motel room and messaged my son to come stay with him. My son went. He sat in the room watching the dogs while Quentin worked, likely smoking and drinking when Quentin was home. My son responded to our texts, but insisted he's an adult and can go where he wants. During this time, he missed a week of medication, school, part of his part-time job, and an important medical appointment. Being Quentin's friend has taken priority. He feels good helping Quentin. It even said, "Quentin is like a brother to me. He's the best brother I've ever had." Quentin's own family has kicked him out. They are nearby but clearly done with him. No idea who watches the dogs when my son isn't available. Earlier this week, my son gave Quentin his bike, saying he needs it more than me. My son came home yesterday in a complete psychiatric crisis from being unmedicated and likely high and or drunk. His medical issues were also exacerbated. He was banging his head on a concrete floor, and when we called emergency services, he spit at the police. So they restrained him and put a spit hood on him. It was horrific and he was begging for help. We're unsure when he'll be stable enough to come home and may need a medical procedure. He was coherent today, crying and apologizing, but remains 100% certain Quentin is his friend. I feel terrible because at 18, it's normal for him to start building his own life and friendships. I look forward to that day. He does have other, more age-appropriate friends, but they have busier lives and responsibilities. They aren't available 24/7. Quentin is, and my son loves the feeling of being needed when his phone pings with a message from his friend. How can I make this man's life miserable, or at least make it too uncomfortable or risky for him to keep hanging with my son? Important note, I do not want to harm or stress the dogs. It's not their fault, and my son would never forgive me. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Intervene now, before Quentin gets your son on a path of using harder drugs. Because everything about this situation screams that's where the situation is headed. Intervention in a serious way should have been executed way before this. Even sending the boy to live with distant relatives and blocking Quentin's number on any phone. This is heartbreaking and no good can come of it. Sounds like you might need to pursue medical conservatorship, which I know you don't want to do, but it sounds like you definitely have grounds, and it's the lesser of two evils at this point. I don't see things ending up well without intervention. Thank you for this, and others who prompt me to reconsider conservatorship. I called a lawyer on Monday. I had already done research and collected that info, but had a lot of hope that once sheltered work started up and he had less free time, it might not be necessary. Pay someone to be your son's friend that's more of a caretaker? Honestly, this guy sounds at the very least like a scammer. Sometimes the only way people into deep in one scam is a second scam. It's sad, but there's literally a bot on r/scams for recovery scams. Basically, people promising to recover your loss for some fee. It's not great, but if you could afford someone to offer better friendship and then point out that his old friend is lame, it'll be like positive peer pressure. Maybe help the person could help them join appropriate opportunities for new friendship, then phase out. This is another great idea, and I appreciated the comments below it here in the thread. I have reached out to some young adults older than him that might serve as mentors or fitness coaches. Hang out with him, work out, play basketball. Build positive connections with people who don't wish him ill. Thank you for this. I have a few possibilities here in our area. Update. A few months ago, I came here asking for tips to help get a man named Quentin out of my son's life. I'm super grateful for all the ideas and the many kind words. As of today and for the last 3 months, my son is happy and healthy. We found a transitional living house for him with 5 other young men and 2 house managers and a dog. He's learning how to adult, cooking, cleaning, and preparing for a job. The program includes therapy, daily gym sessions, yoga, skateboarding. Truly a dream come true. The house is about 40 minutes away from where Quentin lives. My son now feels he has friends, a sense of purpose and independence. He's busy and learning so much, and the program also includes job training. Before this happened, I followed as much of your advice as I could. I contacted the manager at Quentin's workplace and the motel he occasionally stays at. I told them Quentin was allowing a disabled teenager to stay with him and was giving him, and other teens, alcohol. The manager, a local small business owner, took my information seriously. I also went to the motel and pointed out the sign stating all guests must have ID, which my son does not. I reminded the manager of this policy and said I'd contact corporates if it wasn't being followed. I also started calling the non-emergency police line when Quentin was camping at a park after closing hours or leaving his dogs unsupervised during the day. The police would move him along. Someone gave me the brilliant advice to become Quentin's best friend and show up all the time. So I did. If Quentin wanted to see my son, he got to see me too. I showed up at the park, at his work, and near the motel. I even prepared flyers to distribute around the neighborhood, informing residents about the tent, the camping, and the unsupervised, unneutered pit bulls near the playground. Quentin became increasingly upset. He accused me of stalking him and said he was going to call the police. I politely encouraged him to do so, telling him I'd love to share more with the authorities about what he was doing with my son and other vulnerable young people. I told him, if you want to be in my son's life, I'll be in yours. It's up to you. I felt so bold after all your advice and encouragement. I was ready for the long haul. In the meantime, we found a lawyer and tapped into resources to find my son some job training since he genuinely wants to feel grown up and helpful. Through a local agency, he worked for a few weeks at a drugstore, stocking, cleaning, and assisting customers. It kept him busy and gave him confidence, which slowly started pulling him away from Quentin. Eventually, Quentin either got sick of seeing me or became worried about losing his job. The motel he stayed at stopped letting him stay, forcing him to use another location much farther away. With a longer commute to work and more obstacles, he must have decided my son wasn't worth the trouble. He stopped contacting him altogether. Thank you so much for all your ideas. As his mom, I was so focused on fixing things from my son's perspective that I didn't know how to deal with Quentin effectively. Your advice was invaluable. A huge thank you from the mom of a happy, healthy, busy, and purposeful young adult son. Glad it worked out for you and your son. You did great and are a much better person than I am. I would not have handled it as well and would have done some bad things to keep him away. Great mother, and hope this progress continues for you and your son. Good for you. You made a difference where so many fail. My son needs the same program. Please share it with me so we can save him too. You remind me of my mom and the lengths she took to keep her kids happy and safe. She died 24 years ago now on September 29th, 2000. The trajectory of my life would have been vastly different if I had her in my life instead of her dying while I was young. I think anyone should be immensely proud to have you as their parent. Maybe Quentin would have ended up different if they had someone like you as their parents and role model, but who knows? This comment has me crying. So kind of you, and thank you for the comparison to your mom. I'm so glad you had her. Last story. Update. My husband and I took in my best friend and her 3 young children, and I'm regretting it. Original post. My 30 female best friend, 29 female, recently lost her husband, home, car, and all sources of income. Her husband suddenly passed away, and he was the only one working while she stayed at home with their 1-year-old twins and 4-year-old. They had nowhere to go, so we took them in until she can save up enough to get an apartment. There was no life insurance. My husband isn't happy that they are here. He has told me that he does not like my friend at all, claiming that she has taken me away from him and taken over his home. He is paranoid that she is stealing our things when we aren't home and wants to put locks on our bedroom and office doors, as well as install cameras in those rooms. Today, my friend went into our bedroom to smoke a cigarette in our patio and take a moment to herself away from her kids while we weren't home. She called me to let me know she was going out on a patio, but my husband started freaking out when I told him. Now, he says he feels like he needs to get an apartment because he doesn't feel safe and feels like he no longer has a space in our home where they don't have access. It breaks my heart that he hates my friend so much when she hasn't done anything wrong. She's just going through one of the toughest times in her life. But I don't know if I'm being too trusting of my friend and inconsiderate of his feelings, or if he's being too paranoid. Now for the top advice before reading the update. I think there needs to be discussion of a timeline for when she is leaving. He agreed to take her in the short term. At least that is the impression I got reading this. So he needs to chill a bit about them living in his pace. That being said, suddenly having another woman he doesn't like and 3 kids in the house is understandably not awesome. I think the solution is to set a timeline for when she is leaving. Help her find a place as her friend, but stick to the timeline. And set some boundaries about what areas of the house she and her kids have access to and which are off limits. Just because someone is staying at your house doesn't mean they get to treat it like it's their house. The husband is right for not wanting Opie's friend in their bedroom, bathroom, and office. If she can't show immediate respect for that, she needs to be kicked to the curb. I'm sure she'll feel much more confined and restricted at a shelter. Your friend is taking advantage of you and she needs to go. How is she contributing? Is she keeping the house clean? Is she cooking some meals? Paying for some groceries or chipping in for utilities? Understandable that her situation is sad, but this isn't your or your husband's responsibility. You did a nice thing and she's taking it for granted. I guarantee this is going to put a strain on your marriage. It sounds like it has already. It's not your responsibility to take care of somebody else's family. I would tell her she has a set amount of time and stick to that. It might hurt your friendship, but you need to decide what's more important. Friendship versus marriage. She is not taking us for granted at all. She keeps the house clean, cleans up after herself and her children, has assistance for groceries and diapers, waiting to get approved for other assistance. This is the only problem we've had with her in the month she's been here. Her situation is heartbreaking, especially for her 3 children. If it was just her, we would have said no. My husband and I were on the same page with letting her stay. We agreed to 8 months, but I do agree that we need to set a specific move-out date. Maybe I'm a mean friend, but I'd never allow a friend to stay with my husband, our kids, and I. There's a boundary that you don't cross. Why didn't she have any single friends to help her? Because every person she went to said no to helping them, just like everyone else on this Reddit post said they do. My husband and I could not in good conscience let our babies be homeless. Now 40 updates a month later. This update is a few weeks overdue, but a lot has happened. It's hard to fit every single detail of a situation into one post, especially while trying to respect my friend's privacy during such a rough time. However, I took a lot of your advice. I apologized to my husband and asked him what boundaries he needed and what changes were necessary for him to feel more comfortable. We had this conversation before my friend moved in, but things turned out so differently than expected. I realized I was putting my friend before my husband, and it was a harsh wake-up call. My husband wasn't thinking about leaving me, but he was definitely unhappy. I'm glad we had this talk because being on the same page has made us both a lot happier. We sat down and talked to my friend, and it went great. She apologized for going into our bedroom when we weren't home, admitted it was unacceptable, and promised it would never happen again. I told her the bedroom and study were off limits, no exceptions. I also made it clear that her children needed to keep their toys in the playroom we set up for them and not spread them all over the house. She completely agreed to all of this. We changed the locks on the bedroom and study doors, added cameras, and installed a safe for valuables. Most importantly, we told her she needed to find a job and arrange daycare for her children as soon as possible, with a hard deadline of April 1st. She took the whole conversation really well and admitted that she needed this push to move forward and build a life for herself and her kids. 5 days later, she got a job and found daycare for her children. The energy in the house has completely shifted. My husband and I are spending more time alone together in our home, and all of our boundaries have been respected. To everyone who said they'd never take in a friend and her 3 kids, that's exactly why she had nowhere else to go. Everyone else said no. It's been rough on all of us, but my husband and I are now confident in our decision to help her, especially now that we both feel heard and respected. My husband has also worked on his anger toward my friend and feels more at ease interacting with her and coexisting in the same space. It helps that he sees she's taking our rules and deadlines seriously and acting accordingly. Reddit obliterated me, and while I don't agree with kicking her out, I appreciate the brutal honesty that helped me realize I wasn't backing my husband the way I vowed to. When I was young, my parents took in my dad's coworker whose husband had left her. Initially, she could stay as long as she needed, but eventually they did the same thing and said they needed to see her working towards getting back to being independent. She was in the Air Force with my dad at a time, so she had good options. Still a lifelong friend. Love this successful story, even though it wasn't all great all the time. Makes me hopeful that our friendship will continue for another 10 years after this. Thank you for sharing. I think you handled this great, and wow, so wonderful you can help your friend and the 3 kids. It takes one person to make a difference in someone's life. If my extra room can make a huge impact on their lives, then absolutely let them use it. But boy, have boundaries and house rules made things so much tolerable, lol.